Hi, I'm Teiya Kasahara.
And I'm Rachel Kiyo Iwasa,
Singer,
pianist.
and we just performed Racing Queer Music Scholarship, the concert today. And we sang, we played, we performed, made music by Jeffrey Ryan. And So I Killed a Man Tonight from the opera The Laurels.
Then Cursor 7 by Hiroki Tsurumoto, who is a Japanese-Canadian composer who emigrated here from Japan to be with his boyfriend. And he emailed me to say that this is the very first time his music's being performed in a queer context, which he was very excited about.
And we finished off with Leslie Uyeda and Rachel Rose's Solanas song, the first piece from When the Sun Comes Out. Canada's first lesbian opera premiered at the Queer Arts Festival in 2013.
Excellent. So I feel like the repertoire is on a theme. Can you tell me why you chose it?
Well, he wanted queer programming. Yeah, it's first of all, it's great music by some really fantastic composers that happen to be queer or gay or lesbian or whatever, and also some of them racially diverse too. So yeah, giving voice to those different types of identities out there we thought was super important. Us being queer and racially diverse too, just to see more of those identities on stage and putting music out there that is representative of that.
Yeah, I work for the Queer Arts Festival as well, and it's always been one of our priorities as we are curating and choosing art by queer artists, that we make sure that it represents the full diversity of the queer communities. That, as composer Barry Truax said, if art is said to hold a mirror up to life, what does it mean if you don't see yourself there? The implication is that you don't exist. And so, classical music in particular, I mean, we have loads of white gay male composers. When you start looking for lesbian composers, or when you start looking for queers of color, it thins out quite a bit. And I think it's not because they aren't there, it's because it's a climate in which it's not easy to be a woman, it's not easy to be a composer of color, and so then to add queerness on top of that, there's a lot of pressure not to come out. So it's, I really applaud the composers and performers really who put it right out there, because I think it's important.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at arts through history, all of, maybe not quite all, but a large number of our masters have been queer, from Sappho to Michelangelo to Oscar Wilde to Gertrude Stein said, all the best people are that way, you know. Yeah. And I think it's important to acknowledge that diversity, not say that, I mean, I listen to lots of music by straight composers, even when they flaunt it. But I think it's important to be able to recognize the full diversity of creativity that's out there, because that goes a long way towards recognizing, just recognizing people in society. And we live in a bit of a false paradise, We have a feeling like, especially in Vancouver with our rainbow crosswalks, that
Toronto too.
Yeah, that everything's gotten better for queers, and things like the Pulse shooting in Orlando reminds us that we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So you're both alum here?
Mm-hmm.
Did you go to school here together?
We didn't really cross paths in this school.
We were here at the same time, but
Yeah.
I was working on my doctorate, and
It was my undergrad.
so, I mean,
Piano, opera, so kind of like this, unless you're doing collaborative stuff. But
yeah, so we did a little bit of work together at VZ, at the Vancouver International Song Institute, the year that we both graduated.
Exactly.
And everything. And, it was one of those kind of astonishing discoveries where we were just like, what, you've been here for years? Why did we never,
Exactly.
why did we never play together? It was,
and both also being, half Japanese too.
Yeah.
That kind of shared identity. So it took 5 more years before we met up again for the workshop of When the Sun Comes Out in 2012. And then we had the premiere in 2013, and when I was approached by Hetty for this program, I was like, yes, Rachel. She is the person to do it, because I knew I wanted to sing Leslie's music, so, yeah.
And that piece was written for Teiya, and boy, can you hear that it was written for your voice.
Yeah, thanks.
Fits you like a glove.
Yeah, it's been a good journey so far. Yeah, 4 years now for that piece. Yeah.
Wow, so what's it like to be back here, performing here?
It's weird. It's kind of like Twilight Zone, for sure. It's renovated. It's really nice to perform in here. Great acoustic. Yeah, even walking down the halls, I'm like, I remember these smells. I remember that room, or whatever, you know, hanging out in what is the upstairs lobby, you know,
The lounge.
The lounge. Yeah, and just seeing people with their lockers, you know, it's quite nostalgic. But yeah, good memories here.
Yeah, good memories here. But boy, was it a lot easier playing on this stage than I remember it being the last time.
Yes, right? Just there was so much less pressure, I guess, because we could be ourselves, doing a queer program, being queer, for a queer conference. Like, that's amazing. You don't get that every day, you know?
That must be liberating.
Well, and
Yeah.
for me, it was also really special that the conference is putting a focus on race as well. It's racialized queers have been at the front and center of gay liberation since Stonewall. It's not remotely new that we have a strong presence, but somehow that often seems to get kind of erased through the history. So it's wonderful to see an environment like that where that's being centered.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about, I don't have this question quite fully articulated, but I want to ask you about performance, I guess. Like, I feel like we talk about, in academic circles a little bit, about performing race and performing gender, and as performers of music, when you were up here performing a minute ago, I don't know, what were you performing? If that makes sense as a question. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to start, or shall I start?
Were you, I guess, are you conscious of the dynamic in the room? I mean, it sounds like you're talking about it as though you are. You're conscious of the context in which you're performing. Does that impact the way that you might typically approach a performance? So is it different to perform for this group than it is to perform for another because there's a layer that you're not performing, for instance?
Completely. Well, first because of the subject matter, you know, the piece, especially Solana's, and it being a queer character in love with a woman, and having that love also forbidden in that context. So it's just something I can directly relate to, as opposed to trying to be some 19th century, you know, bourgeoisie woman that I'm trying to...
His main goal is marriage.
Exactly, right? Or something like that, to a man, you know, that very heteronormative narrative. So being able to express and be in the body of a very relevant and queer narrative of today, of 2016, of our 21st century, it's, like Hetty said, it's liberating, it's grounding, it's visceral, it's so fulfilling, and it's so, yeah, it's just wonderful. And to be able to, you know, to also collaborate with someone who is queer, and to make that music, and to not just have, you know, kind of any pianist play with me. You know, it's special when you can really understand and get the story and get the narrative, because music is well, music with words and opera, it's about stories, it's about storytelling and connecting, but music in general and overall, that overall encompassing thing, it's about connecting and sharing. So, you know, even if it doesn't have words or something like that, or a story, but.
Well, yeah, and when we were rehearsing last night and putting together Hiroki's piece, this is our first time performing that, we were commenting on how, you know, how many of the, although with the exception of a couple of words, it's in English and then, you know,
Vowels.
And vowels and syllables. But the choice of the vowels and the way that it's put together is, very much reflects Japanese language.
Oh, yeah.
It
As soon as I opened the page, I was like, oh, that's interesting.
And it reminded, my father never taught me Japanese, though it was his first language, but he did, he taught me how to speak the alphabet. That's one of, and so that, as the
Hiragana,
Yeah.
so a, I, u, e, o, kakiku, keko, sashi,
Yeah.
su, se, so, like it's all divided in those kinds of vowels with the consonants and how you learn how to write it.
Yeah, and I had a really lovely flashback to that, to learning that as a young child, and my father died when I was a child. His last surviving brother and sister just died this past month, and it was really meaningful for me in my artistic practice to be able to connect to my Japanese heritage. We connect to to the European side of my heritage in the music that I play all the time, and it's meaningful to be able to have parts of have the other part of my heritage also recognized.
Yeah, rock and roll. Great. Like any parting words? Like
Just-
some UBC gang sign or something?
Just sing the music song.
I never learned it.
Never learned it.
Thank you to Hetty and all the organizers for putting this together.
Thank you so much.
And I hope that this is the first of many such conferences.
Yes, keep them coming. And yeah, it was great. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.